In this video, we will focus on part writing triads that are a second/seventh apart. To identify the distance between two chords, we focus on the roots. For example, from a C chord to a D minor chord, we have the distance of up a second. If we move the D down an octave, we now have the distance of a seventh down from C to D. When we take an interval and switch what note is on the bottom, this is called interval inversion. Seconds invert to sevenths and the other way around. Since seconds invert to sevenths, the part writing procedure in this lesson will apply to chords a second or a seventh apart. Triads that are a second/seventh apart have no notes in common, so all voices will have to move. Here is a C chord moving to a D minor chord. They are analyzed as 1 to 2 in the key of C. This example presents a common mistake that is made when voicing chords that are a second/seventh apart. Notice that all of the voices are moving in the same direction, up. If we look closely at pairs of voices, we can see that the C in the bass and the C in the tenor make an octave. In the D minor voicing, the bass and the tenor both move to Ds. This is considered a parallel octave. Parallel octaves are avoided in part writing because they kill the independence between parts. If both the bass and the tenor go from C to D, they are, in fact, singing the same melody, so there is no independence. Another issue that arises in this example is the interval between the tenor and the soprano, also the bass and the soprano, since the tenor and bass are both on C. C to G is a perfect fifth, and D to A in the next chord in the same voices is also a perfect fifth. Therefore, these are parallel fifths. Parallel fifths are avoided in part writing for the same reason that parallel octaves are avoided. They destroy the independence of the melodic lines. Since this example has parallel fifths and octaves, it is not representative of strong part writing from the common practice period. Let's start with the same voicing for the C chord and rework the D minor chord to avoid the parallel fifths and octaves. Since triads that are a second/seventh apart have no common tones, they will always result in issues with parallels if all the voices are moving in the same direction. The procedure for voicing one root position triad to another root position triad a second/seventh away is as follows. Move the soprano, alto, and tenor voices in the opposite direction of the bass to the closest notes of the chord. Here, the soprano is on G and the bass is moving up. We will move the soprano down to the F since it is the closest note of the D minor chord moving in the opposite direction from the bass. The E and the alto will move down to D, the closest note of the D minor chord moving opposite the bass, and the C and the tenor will move down to A. This procedure ensures that there are no parallel fifths or octaves. The result is also a complete triad with a doubled root. Here is another example, this time using A minor to G in the key of C. The analysis is 6 to 5. For this example, the chords are moving down a second. To avoid parallel fifths and octaves, the soprano, alto, and tenor voices will need to move in the opposite direction from the bass, so they will move up to the closest notes of the G chord. The A and the soprano from the A minor chord will move to B. The E and the alto will move to G, and the C and the tenor will move to D. We now have a complete G chord with a doubled root. Let's summarize. Triads that are a second/seventh apart have no common tones. To avoid parallel fifths and octaves, the soprano, alto, and tenor voices will need to move in the opposite direction from the bass to the closest notes of the next chord.